All right. Good afternoon, everybody. What's going on? This your girl Tiffany coming through right here live in effect. So today I will be dealing with the topic about an icon who was very prominent not only in the acting scene but also in the black community. Um, this brother here have not been given proper credit to what credit is due, in my opinion. So many people don't know much about him, or many don't know that him and Ruby D were a married couple, a very proud black married couple at that. This man has done a lot of movies. He has done a lot of writings. He has played a part in activism, but not many hear his name very often, or it's not brought up into the conversation. You don't even hear his name in the mainstream like that, nor do you really hear about Ruby D. So the person that I'm talking about, who is now an ancestor, is Ossie Davis. So that's who the topic is going to be about, Ossie Davis. As you can see, his name is at the bottom. So let's go ahead and let's look at what his life and legacy was, and what did he do, and how did he get into the concept of activism, and how did he get involved in acting and whatnot. All right, so here's the information right here, as you can see on the Wikipedia source that I have posted. So right here, this is Ossie Davis. This is a picture of Ossie Davis. That's him. All right. And also, let me show you guys another picture. So that's Ossie Davis again. That's Ossie Davis, and that's Ruby D, who is his wife. Okay. Peace to the brother in the chat. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. All righty. If you guys can see my screen. All right. So let me exit out of here. Okay. So his real name was Radford Chapman Ossie Davis. He was born on December 18th, 1917, and he died on February the 4th of 2005. He was an American film, television, and Broadway actor, director, poet, playwright, author, and civil rights activist. He was married to Ruby D, who also died June 11th of 2014, with whom he frequently performed until his death. He and his wife were named to the NAACP Image Awards Hall of Fame, were awarded the National Medal of Arts, and were recipients of the Kennedy Center's honors. He was inducted into the American Theater Hall of Fame in 1994. All right, so let's look at his early years. So he was born in Caldwell, Clinch County, Georgia, which that's further south somewhere. A son of Kenneth Charles Davis, a railway construction engineer, and his wife Laura. He everly became known as Ossie when his birth certificate was being filed, and his mother's pronunciation of his name as R.C. Davis was misheard by the courthouse clerk in Clinch County, Georgia. Davis experienced racism from an early age when the KKK threatened to shoot his father, whose job they felt was too advanced for a black man to have. His siblings included scientist William Conan Davis, social worker S.E. Morgan Davis, pharmacist Kenneth Curtis Davis, and biology teacher James Davis. Wow. Following the wishes of his parents, he attended Howard University but dropped out in 1934 to fulfill his desire for an acting career in New York. After a recommendation by Alan Locke, he later attended Columbia University School of General Studies. His acting career, which spanned at 8 decades, began in 1939 with the roles McClendon players in Harlem. During World War II, Davis served in the United States Army in the Medical Corps. He made his film debut in 1950 in the Sidney Poitier film No Way Out. All right, so like many others that grew up in the South, grew up on the hardship, grew up on the racism, he migrated to the North, and which one day I'm going to get into the concept about the Great Migration, with a lot of people from the South migrating up to the North. So he moved to New York, and he found opportunity there where he can advance and to focus on his acting career. All right. And his activism. So we're going to get into the part about how he met Ruby Dee, but let's continue. It says, when Davis wanted to pursue a career in acting, he ran into the usual roadblocks that Black people suffered at the time, as they generally could only portray stereotypical characters such as Stephen Finchett. Instead, he tried to follow the example of Sidney Poitier and play more distinguished characters. When he found it necessary to play a Pullman porter or a butler, he played those characters realistically, not as a caricature or caricature. In addition to acting, Davis, along with Melvin Van Peebles and Gordon Parks, was one of the notable Black directors of his generation. He directed movies such as Gordon's War, Black Girl, and Kind Comes to Harlem. Along with Bill Cosby and Poitier, Davis was one of a handful of Black actors able to find commercial success while avoiding stereotypical roles prior to the 1970s, which also included a significant role in the 1965 movie The Hill, alongside Sean Connery, who just recently passed away, and that was the guy that played James Bond, by the way. Plus roles in The Cardinal and the Scalpel Hunters. However, Davis never had the tremendous commercial or critical success that Cosby and Poitier enjoyed. As a playwright, David wrote Paul Robeson, All American, which is frequently performed in the theater programs for young audience. All right. So I'm going to highlight this area right here. Where it says that Davis never had the tremendous commercial or critical success that Cosby and Poitier enjoyed. So Ossie Davis never reached that pinnacle of success like Bill Cosby did. But you gotta know, Bill Cosby started off as a comedian out of West Philadelphia. Then he worked his way up into the acting scene. That's what a lot of comedians do. They go from doing stand-up comedies to getting from local bars and local areas. Then they go into the big stage where they do their comedy special, right? And then they eventually get roles in the movie. However, with Ossie Davis going into the acting field and coming out the South and having the mindset that he has as a Black man, he wasn't going to get a lot of critical and commercial success. Same way with Dick Gregory. He didn't get a lot of commercial success. He was a comedian, but he was more so an activist. Because of his activism, it interfered with his success as a commercial individuals. You know what I'm saying? It interfered with his opportunity to get that type of mainstream recognition. So anytime that you're so heavy into activism, especially when it comes to your community, it's going to interfere with your career. And people are going to try to use it against you in a sense where they can blackball you or blacklist you and all kinds of stuff. So he wasn't the only one. Eartha Kitt was the same way because she was so active in the community. It interfered with her career as an actress. Nobody know that she was one of the first women to do the movie about Catwoman. Because of what she did and because of her involvement in activism that hindered her career to where she couldn't find work in America. She had to go elsewhere. But let me continue back on with Ossie Davis. So yeah, it was like that with some of those who were just very prominent and who was really about focusing on their people. They had a hard time getting some type of mainstream recognition. All right, so, and it says, in 1976, Davis appeared on Muhammad Ali, a novelty album for children, The Adventures of Ali and His Game versus Mr. Tooth Decay. I didn't even know Muhammad Ali had an album. Davis found recognition late in his life by working in several of director Spike Lee's films, including Doing the Right Thing, Jungle Fever, She Hate Me, and Get on the Bus. He also found work as a commercial voiceover artist and served as the narrator of the early 1990s CBS sitcom Even Shade, starring Burt Reynolds, where he also played one of the residents of a small southern town. And it says, in 1999, Davis appeared as a theater caretaker in the Trans-Siberian Orchestra film The Ghost of the Christmas Eve, which was released on DVD 2 years later. For many years, he hosted the annual National Memorial Day concert from Washington, D.C. He voiced Anansi the Spire on the PBS children's television series Sesame Street in its animation segments. Davis' last role was a several episode guest role on the Showtime drama series The L Word, as a father struggling with the acceptance of his daughter, Biddy, parenting a child with her lesbian partner. In his final episode, his character was taken ill and died. His wife, Ruby Dee, was present during the filming of his own death scene. That episode, which aired shortly after Davis' own death, aired with a dedication to the actor. After Davis' passing, actor Dennis Haysbert portrayed him in the 2015 film Experimenter. All right, so right here it goes down to talk about his honor. In 1989, Ossie Davis and his wife, actress and activist Ruby Dee, were named to the NAACP Image Awards Hall of Fame. In 1995, they were awarded the National Medal of Arts, the nation's highest honor conferred to an individual artist on behalf of the country, and present in a White House ceremony by the President of the United States. In 2004, they were recipients of the prestigious Kennedy Center Honors. According to the Kennedy Center Honors, the honors recipients recognized for their lifetime contribution to the American culture through the performing arts, whether in dance, music, theater, opera, motion picture, or television, are selected by the Center's Board of Trustees. The primary criterion in the selection process is excellent. The honors are not designated by art form or category of artistic achievement. The selection process over the years has produced balance among the various arts and artistic disciplines. In 1994, Davis was inducted into the American Theater Hall of Fame. All right. Okay, so that's him right here in the picture. Davis and Dee were well known as civil rights activists during the civil rights movement and were close friends of Malcolm X, Jesse Jackson, Martin Luther King Jr., and other icons of the era. They were involved in organizing the 1963 Civil Rights March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom and served as its MCs. Davis, alongside Ahmad Osman, delivered the eulogy at the funeral of Malcolm X. He reread part of this eulogy at the end of Spike Lee's film, Malcolm X. He also delivered a stirring tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. at a memorial in New York's Central Park the day after King was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee. All right. So if anybody had watched the Malcolm X movie, at the end of the movie, where there was a tribute, Ossie Davis gave a tribute to Malcolm. All right, he was doing the commentary at the very end, and then I think in the autobiography of Malcolm X's book, he had some segments in the book I think it was towards the end of it, where he writes about the life of Malcolm and he gives his account on his legacy and whatnot. So I think it's in the autobiography of Malcolm X as well. I'm not sure. I have to go back and double check. But I do know that he did give commentary at the end of the video. Okay. So let's look at his personal life. How did he meet Ruby Dee? How did him and Ruby Dee get together and become a dynamic duo? That's a good question. Well, the personal life. In 1948, Davis married actress Ruby Dee, whom he had met on the set of Robert Audrey's 1946 play Jeb. In their joint autobiography with Ossie and Ruby, they described their decision to have an open marriage, later changing their minds. In the mid-1960s, they moved to New York, suburb of New Rochelle, where they remained where they remained ever after. Their son, Guy Davis, is a blues musician and former actor who appeared in the film Beat Street and the daytime soap opera One Life to Live. Their daughters are Nora Davis Day and Hasina Muhammad. All right. And then it says his death. He died in a Miami hotel room on February the 4th, in 2005. An official cause of death was not released, but he was known to have had heart problems. All right, so as you see down here, let's look at the filmography. All the films that he done played in. It says the first film that he played in was No Way Out as John Brooks, and it was uncredited. 14 Hours as cab driver, uncredited. Joe Louis Story as Bob, uncredited. Now, and then there's a movie called Slaves where he played it came out in 1969 as Luke, and he played in Watts Stotts in 1973 as himself, uncredited. All right, so as you can see, Jungle Fever as the Good Reverend Dr. Purify in 1991. All right. And it says Cop and a Half in 1993 as Detective in Squad Room, uncredited. So the last thing he played was A Trumpet at the Walls of Jericho in 2005. Is a documentary. Okay. Badass in 2003 as Granddad. Bill, A Black Woman Speaks in 2003 documentary as himself. All right. So, and he played on Dr. Doolittle as Archer Doolittle. I think I remember. I don't remember him playing Dr. Doolittle though. Hmm. Yeah, he played in that movie though. All right, so and he played in Gladiator in 1992 as Noah. All right, so and then also it goes in the list of the television program that he played in. Let me see if there's the one that I'm familiar with. Okay, he played in Touched by the Angel as Aramesis Jones slash Gabriel Gabby. Um, let's see, what other movie am I familiar with that he played in? Okay, so I remember that. Well, I remember that show called The L Word. He played as Melvin Porter. Yeah. Hmm. All right. So these are the list of the movies that he directed. And then there's the biography. I mean, the reference at the bottom of the page, the external links, bibliography. All right. So I would like to show you guys the book that he wrote. So he written several books, right? And it's all can be found here. So this book right here that was written by Ossie Davis was his autobiography. It's called Life Lit by Some Large Vision. Selected Speeches and Writings, Ossie Davis. Okay. Let's see what he wrote in this book. Hmm. Okay, so in this writing is called Address at the Palm Garden. October 10, 1952, originally distributed by the National Council of the Arts, Science, and Profession. It said, it is my honor and my privilege to be with you tonight in this meeting of protest. The Inquisition, let's start with what it's about. No doubt about it, it was not the best of times, especially for whites America. Black America already knew about witch hunts, about what happens to troublemakers wanting to vote, lynching, castration, job discrimination. Say what? Communism, socialism, liberalism, are you now or have you ever been? Weren't you one of those at a meeting on? Isn't this your picture published in? People fired, dying, broke, running, lying, being brave, selling out, betrayal. It was definitely one of the worst of times. It is my honor and pleasure to be with you tonight in this meeting of protest. An inquisition is upon us, and our very right to meet together and talk like this is under fire. All over the country, men and women are becoming increasingly aware of what is going on to their freedom. Teachers of many years of service are fired without hearing. Actors are barred from employment because they refuse to be bullied about their politics. Lawyers, doctors, miners, longshoremen, newsmen, and publishers are also being violently pushed around in the grossest violation of civil rights in the history of the republic. But thank God they are not. Thank God they are fighting back. Let me see. The Macarian committee has not found itself welcome everywhere. Men are beginning to remember what liberty means to them and have not hesitated in some places to drive the witch hunter from their midst. We are here tonight can we're here tonight can take courage from all the various groups and individuals who have had the guts to put the boot to this evil thing. They have shown that it can be fought, and it must be fought with every weapon and aroused democracy can lay its hands upon. I wrote a play called Alice in Wonderland, which we presented briefly, all too briefly, up in Harlem a week or so ago. And on the basis of that, I was invited to come here and to speak to you. It wasn't much display, but it was mine. It gave my wife, Miss Ruby D, whom I consider the potential equal of my actress in the land, a chance to practice her craft. Few Negroes get that opportunity these days. Black channels, for I must tell you that economic in tradition, which means that nobody will hire you no matter how good you are, is not a new thing to us. Negro teachers have long been the victims of the most arrant job discrimination in this city, and Negro actors who work once every 5 years are doing pretty well. I myself have been lucky. In 6 years, I have managed to work in 8 shows on Broadway, and 5 times out of that 8, I carry a tray. I had to. There was nothing else for Black performers to carry. Oh yes, I have heard of Red Channels. All right, so Red Channel was a pamphlet that listed the names of 150 writers, directors, performers, and subversive organization with which they were affiliated. Okay. Oh, those individuals were blacklisted in Hollywood. Black Channel is a rhetorical play on Red Channels. All right, so it goes on to say, and I am horrified every time I see it in action, that a man should be banished from his profession without recourse merely as a consequence of the color of his politics is as grossly unjust as that a man should suffer the same punishment merely as a consequence of the color of his face. Red Channel or Black Channels, there's precious little difference to a man with a family to feed. Both these evil things attack me through my need for security, and I cannot hate the one without detesting the other one. The good citizen is at war with both. Wow. Okay, so that was his story about how he was basically blackballed. And as I was going back speaking earlier about his political views and his stance, and by him being a civil rights activist, it interfered with his career. So a lot of these Black actors, musicians, or whatnot, if they were too heavily involved in civil rights or voting rights or anything of that nature during that time period, they were going to get blackballed. If they were interfering with the war in Vietnam, in regard to Black children being sent overseas to fight this war, they were going to get blackballed. So, and that was the challenge. That's why today you don't hear as much Black people getting too heavily involved in activism. We're talking about Black celebrities because they don't want to lose their fame and they don't want to lose their wealth. Now, there are those who don't care about any of that. Their primary focus is to fight for the rights of those individuals in their community. But there are those that say, you know what, I can't risk this. That's why people like Monique, a prime example. One of the reasons why she was having a hard time finding work because she was blackballed, because she spoke out against things that she saw that was very discriminatory against women of color. She spoke out against Netflix. So people said, oh, she hindered her opportunity. She didn't take on that $500,000 deal because she's not really a legend or she's not that funny. It's not that. It's because she saw the discriminatory practices that was happening between somebody that's Black and a woman and a white woman and African-American men. She saw that. She said, well, wait a minute. Amy Schumer, the white woman, she makes more money than me. This woman got offered $11 million. I only get offered $500,000. And when she confronted them about that, they gave her the silent treatment. So therefore, she let it be known that she was not feeling it because she was very outspoken. She pointed things out. She became a problem to other blacks who's in the film industry, who's in a acting scene. She became a problem to them. They pretty much separate themselves from her. They pretty much say, okay, you're on your own. She confronted Steve Harvey about it. And Steve Harvey said, it's about the income. And she said, no, it's about integrity. So in other words, it's about being honest and being transparent about things. And what Steve Harvey was trying to tell her that, oh, you can't be too transparent. Because if you be too transparent, guess what's going to happen? You're going to lose at the very end. So and if you're going to be transparent, there's a way that you got to address it, and you can't address it the way you want to address it. But she was basically like, look, I get what you're saying, but I feel like I had to address this because enough is enough. And it's too much dirty shit going on. So I got to say something about this. If I ain't going to say nothing about it, then it's going to be continuously swept under the rug. And once it's continuously swept under the rug, it's going to build more dust and create more problems. So that's the way she was thinking. But anyways, let's see if I can play a video. Also, I want to show you guys another book by Ossie Davis and his wife. All right, so here's a book by Ossie Davis and Ruby D. That's their autobiography. As you can see, I'm on the website called thearchive.org. So that's his that's the website. And basically it goes into their life and how they met each other and how they began working with each other and how they started their family and whatnot and their activism and things of that nature. So, yep.
It affected me personally. It affected me personally in that I'm sure it denied me opportunities, and it also insulted me. I mean, that same CBS that had given me all these wonderful opportunities didn't hesitate to ask me to sign loyalty oaths. That took strong exceptions. Um, it it affected me more in my relationship to my fellow performers and Paul Robeson in a sense than I felt personally. Although there was a time Rube and I was summoned to come down to Center Street and answer to the committee whether we were communists or not. We went through all of that stuff.
This is during McCarthyism?
Yeah, but we somehow could brave it. You see, being black and having lived in the South with the Ku Klux Klan and people, always insisting you're a second-class citizen and a spy, the committees weren't all that strange to us. But it was to our white friends who had no idea of how mean and evil these things could be, some of whom died or killed themselves. This is what affected us.
Simply because they were accused.
Yes. As black folks, we said, well, white folks going crazy again, but they'll be back shortly. So let's keep the thing rolling. It was a horrible time. One of our friends, and he got to be friends, worked on CBS, John Henry Falk, who lost his job on the radio because of the blacklist. And Ruby and he were involved in an election, which put them into red channels and all kind of things happened. So we got to be friends as we joined forces to try and fight against the blacklist. And John Henry Falk was almost like a member of the family.
So politically, you were active in.
Oh yes. We never hid the fact, that we had commitments and relationship to friends. We knew we weren't any traitors. We knew we weren't carrying bombs. We knew that who Paul Robeson was and what he stood for. We knew W.E.B. Du Bois and what he stood for. And these were people for whom we would put our lives on the line if it was required. We loved them and respected them that much, and we still do. Felt very strongly about that.
Did you sign loyalty oaths?
No.
But the network wanted you to.
Well, when the jobs came along, what was required? That you signed the loyalty oath. But there was no offering of jobs from CBS for us at that time that I remember. But we wouldn't have signed, had they offered it, that kind of nonsense. The NBC didn't require a loyalty oath, but man, the other ways they had of filtering you out, there was a time when a lawyer friend of ours, was talking about suing NBC because of that. Nothing ever came of it. But if you may not remember because you were very young, but these awful things took place at the same time some most exciting things were happening in the world, and in Asia and in Africa, and the Bandung Conference, and Nehru, and Robeson, and these people who strode the world stage like giants. We over here, embroiled in this cruddy blacklisting thing, while overseas, huge human beings, were accomplishing things. So we, in our relationship to them, drew inspiration that helped us fight against these things here. We were sort of internationalist in our response.
And while this was going on, there was the Committee of Un-American Activities.
Yeah.
Did you witness any of those hearings?
I was called to them. I was, on one occasion, the young man who stood up and asked Equity to join in the fight to secure Paul Robeson's passport. Well, all hell broke loose. The union at that time, everybody in the union knew Paul and loved him, but it was death to hold your hand up in support of Paul Robeson, So the furor, as a result of that one meeting, got down to Washington, D.C., and they said, we better send a committee up there to sort of show Broadway, where its best interests lie. The committee came to town, issued subpoenas. Rube and I got subpoenas. We went downtown. I testified. Ruby didn't. Once again, another of those humorous incidents. Time came to go downtown to testify. We couldn't find a babysitter. And the babies were here. And I said, Ruby, you got to go. She said, I ain't leaving my babies. So I went down and told the powers that be that here I am, but my wife is at home. As soon as she finds a babysitter, she'll be sitting, she'll be here. So they got me in, And they asked me, are you a communist or not? And I said, no, but I have a statement I wanted. He said, are we a communist? No. Well, get down, please. Get him out. Nobody want to hear from me. So I left, and then, but Ruby hadn't shown up. So finally, almost at the end of the hearing, I looked down, and here comes Ruby up the steps. So I go to the woman who's running the hearings. I said, "Yes, Ruby. Yes, Ruby. She's here." And I said, "Really to testify?" And the woman's name was Scotty. She said, "Look, well, tell her, some other time. We ain't got time for all that nonsense." So there we were, ready to make brave statements to the world.
Bold statements.
Absolutely. And nobody was listening. So Ruby and I laughed about this, but there were other people who didn't laugh, because it was too horrendous for them.
Bad time in American history.
It was a bad time. And the danger is that we can forget it and produce this situation where such a bad time will come again. I hope we're smart enough not to, but there's no guarantee that we won't.
Now, that was the life of Ossie Davis. He was speaking on his experience working with Paul Robeson and how him and Ruby Dee were very outspoken couples during a time period regarding to the movements, and basically getting the detail about the blacklisting, which is basically dealing with those who were not able to obtain opportunities, especially in the mainstream, as far as making lucrative income goes. So they couldn't take on a lot of major roles in like television sitcoms or movies or whatnot. So they couldn't take on major roles. So they were blacklisted. And they were not offered lucrative amount of money. Again, that's how things were and how they still are today. So if you're a celebrity and you get to that level of success, you have to move. You have to move a certain way because you're basically walking on thin ice. So oftentimes we might ask ourselves, well, why don't these black celebrities do anything for their own communities? Why they don't give back, etc., etc.? Well, because look who they made the deal with. So it's basically like you made a deal with the devil. Once you make a deal with the devil, you limit it as far as your option or what you can do and what you cannot do. Going back to where I stated at one point in time in the video about playing the hands that you're dealt with and then playing your cards right. So if you're given a hand that you have to dealt, that you've been dealt with, okay, you look at those hands, and as you look at those hands, you figure out how you're gonna play those hands. So that's when you come in to play your cards right. So once you learn how to play your hands, then you can be able to play the cards. So you have a chance of either winning or you have a chance of losing. There's always a probability. And that's the same way it goes with this industry that we call the movie industry, the music industry, whatever type of industry it is. They giving you that hand. Now, that hand that you have, you better play it. If you didn't play your cards right, you're gonna end up losing that hand. If you're playing your cards right, you're gonna end up winning that hands. So a lot of these celebrities, especially the black ones, they're moving a certain way so they won't become blacklisted or blackballed. They careful what they say. They play along with the politics just so they could still remain in the position of power they're in. so they could still make their profits and without running into so many problems and so many controversy and lawsuits. And then there are those who don't care. They'll risk it all. They say, you know what? I don't care about this kind of stuff because this stuff is getting tiring anyhow. So I want to do something else different. And there's those who say, you know what? I don't want to do this, but I'm going to have to take this risk. I'm going to have to take this risk of saying something or doing something about certain issues. Yep. So anyways, that's all for today about Ossie Davis. And I want to thank you guys for watching or tuning in to the video if you have. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell whenever I come on, and be able to make sure that you're liking this channel. All right. So with that being said, may peace be to you all, and please be safe. Be careful if you're going to try this vaccine that's supposed to be coming out. Please be careful. But other than that, be safe. All right. Thank you. Peace.